The Ramana Yoga Sutras. Krishna Bikshu. Sri Krishna Bikshu, Oruganti Venkata Krishnaya, is a well-known name among the early devotees of Bhagavan Sri Ramana. A lawyer by profession, a scholar by nature, and a devotee supreme, he is the author of a number of works on Bhagavan. As an inmate of Sri Ramanashramam for a number of years under the presence of Bhagavan, he authored Ramana Leela in Telugu, which has captured the life and teachings of the Master in a very captivating style. In the present work, which is a study of one of the central teachings of Bhagavan, the writer elucidates with sharpness and clarity how Bhagavan's teachings are in tune with the best traditional Advaitic thought and texts. This article was first produced by Sri Ramana Satsang, Nellore, in their 1980 birth centenary souvenir and is now being reissued for a wider readership. Introductory. The Sutra is a form of Aryan scientific literature. It is a statement of the essential point of a doctrine in the fewest possible number of words, enunciated in a clear, unambiguous, and comprehensive way, touching all the aspects of the point in question. In studying a sutra, therefore, not even a letter can be omitted. In ancient times, disciples used to go to the master and request him to teach them the Vedanta. The disciple was required to possess an initial basic ethical training, and it was also required that he should have turned away from all the affairs of the world. As it is said in the Brahmanical texts, he should have had the 4 requirements of mind and the 6 ethical qualities. In Sanskrit, they are called Sadhana Chatushtya and Samadhi Shakta Sampatti. The Ramana doctrine requires no such initial equipment. It is intended for all, man or woman, or whatever race or clime. Anybody following the Ramana path will, in the course of his sadhana, get all this equipment automatically. We have said, the sutra being so short, not a letter can be omitted in its interpretation. Why? The Guru, after he elucidated the philosophical point, would put his entire teaching in the form of a sutra, so that the disciple could remember it easily and by the law of association the entire doctrine. Yoga literally means union, that is, of the sadhaka and the thing he strives for. The exact English equivalent is religion. In common parlance, yoga signifies the doctrine of Hatha Yoga, or control of the breath by using force of several kinds, adopting various asanas, etc. But here, the word is used in a general sense as a method of sadhana only. In ancient times, the various ways of enlightenment were termed vidyas. In the Vedas, only the term vidya is used. From the time of the Gita, the term yoga has come into vogue. Vidya emphasizes the aspect of knowing the ultimate. The word yoga signifies the union of the soul with the divine. In the Ramana doctrine, the real emphasis is on knowledge and inherence in it. But the commonly known term yoga has been employed throughout in this brochure, so that Ramana Yoga means the doctrine of Ramana on the way to attaining the ultimate. Is it really for all? In a way, yes. It is more specially for those who are wallowing in the miseries of samsara, for those who wish to get away from that bondage, or even for those who have had enough of the world, even of the riches and the sweet fruits of samsara. The term used in Sanskrit for this point of view is Alam Buddhi or enough idea. The Ramana doctrine is also for those who want to know the truth. The text: Atmanishto Bhava. Inhere in the self. Atman denotes the body, the prana, the mind, the buddhi, the individual, and the ultimate. Here, Atman is only used to indicate the ultimate. Normally, the self is the word used to indicate the ultimate, and the self used to indicate the individual entity. Already, we are firm in the notion of our individuality, and it requires no teaching from the master. The master emphasizes that the aim should be inherence in the ultimate. By implication, the master insists that the sadhaka should turn his face away from all the affairs and ideas of the world. He must be literally dead to it, so that he may be reborn in the divine realm. The master teaches that we should strictly abandon all activities, contacts, and social functions of the world, whether good or bad, whether for individual or social benefit. The aspirant should be a nisanya, non-attached. He should not allow himself to be carried away by such propaganda suggesting that living in society means participation in it for the good of the society, or for that matter, for any portion of the society or even for individuals. He should be non-attached even to his individual matters, including attainment of mystic powers or better worlds called heaven in the Christian and Mohammedan religions, Swarga in the Hindu and Buddhist religions, and the several lokas of Indra, Agni, Varuna, etc. Indra, Agni, and Varuna are the devas or deities mentioned in the Veda. They have their own worlds or lokas. In the Ramana doctrine, there is no god or gods, angels or archangels, powers and hosts to rely upon for attaining the state of self-inherence. Nishtha comprises two ideas really. Shtha indicates being in. Nish indicates firmly, never to come out. The use of nish indicates that in the Ramana doctrine, once one attains the highest state, there should be no coming back or down. In the Yoga Shastra, the sadhaka comes down to the earth again even from the states of highest samadhi. When the power of his concentration slackens, he reverts to his normal state of consciousness, that is Jagrat. Ramana distinguishes this state as the state of practice and not a state of attainment of the goal, which he calls the Sahaja state, that is, the native state, the original state. According to him, it is only when he forgets his pristine state that the notions of himself, the world, and the Lord of the world occur. This aphorism defines the goal. It must be noted that in Ramana's opinion, all other activities, even the divinization of the world, are futile, without which knowledge one can never understand his relation to the world and to the Lord, nor the lesser aim of perfecting the world, which will not and cannot be successfully done. Hridivisa, enter the heart. Notes: the word heart here is used in its verbal sense. It means that which carries away, that which engulfs, that which digests everything into itself. The meaning is that the world and consequently ideas of it submerge into the heart. Logically, the ideas of the world must submerge into that form which they originally sprang. In effect, the base on which thoughts arise and into which they finally subside is the heart. Really, it is indefinable. For a definition means a significant, distinctive statement of the characteristics of a thing. All these are included in the realm of ideas which do not appear there, where the heart alone is. Therefore, the heart mentioned here should exclude the following definitions of the heart given in various schools of philosophy. It does not mean the blood pumping organ in the body. It does not mean the Anahata Chakra mentioned in the Yoga. In the Yoga Shastra, it is said that there is a conduit pipe for the flow of the vital prana inside the spinal column consisting of 2 canals and sheathed into one. Through one of them, the Purva Sushumna, the Kundalini power, flows from below upwards when forced by practice of yoga to the centers, and when the power inheres in each chakra, various mystic powers are attained. The 4th chakra from below is called the Anahata and is about the level of sternum. Evidently, this is not the heart mentioned or intended here. Neither it is the Atman. Bhagavan explained the Hridayam as consisting of 2 words, Hrid plus Ayam. This is the Hrid, that is the Atman. It is said above in the first aphorism that to reach the Atman, one must enter the heart. Nor is it the heart mentioned by Bhagavan as being on the right side of the chest between the 2 nipples. That is the point according to Bhagavan where first the Chit Shakti, the knowledge power, enters the body of a being. That power goes to the head, Sahasrara, through the Amrita Nadi and comes down through the Sushumna, giving us the experiences of the various worlds. It is not the heart which signifies the center of emotions. All these definitions must be eschewed before the exact significance of the word Hrid is comprehended. Hrid really means a state of consciousness and force. It is from this sea of consciousness that during the wakeful state thoughts arise, and into this that they again subside. Some say that thoughtlessness itself is the state of Atma realization. Surely not. We have no thought when we enter sleep or when experiencing a fit. Surely these states are not the state of Atman. Buddha calls this state only Sunyata or void, but Atman is a positive conception. Hindu philosophy explains that the divine has an indefinable power called Maya. Maya should not be equated with illusion. These two are not the same. Maya has 2 powers. It acts as a sheath to the Atman. This power is called Avarana Shakti. There's another correlated power. This is the power of manifestation, of becoming many. That power is called the Vikshepa Shakti. Now, in sleep, we are not in command of our own mind. That is, of the totality of thoughts. Our will does not function. We are said to be in a state of tamas. To attain realization, we must have awareness. We must be wakeful and get the experience. We must have the sattva guna. The state of the void is called tamasi by the Advaitins or the Maya. Buddhists call it the sunyata. Modern Indian philosophers have made a total confusion between the two. They mistakenly proclaim that Sunyata is the Brahman. No, one may or may not get the Sunyata state before realization. Tripura Rahasya says that there are 6 different states before attaining realization. In yoga also, in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, one gets a state of thoughtlessness. Practically, the glory of Atma realization is experienced then. The only difference between the state and the state of Atma realization advocated by Bhagavan is that in the former, one slips back to normal consciousness eventually, but when one's realization or Atmanishtha is attained, one never departs from it. Pavana Chalana Rodhat, by controlling the movement of the breath. Bhagavan explains how one can enter the heart or the state of thoughtlessness. He says it can be done by controlling the movements of breath. It is said that the word pavana here is used in a technical sense. It means prana or the vital force. The vital force in a body works mainly in 5 ways and in other 5 ways which are subsidiary. The first 5 movements are called the Panchapranas. The first force makes one breathe in, another enables him to talk, another enables one to expel things out of the body, still another aids digestion, and the 5th spreads all over the body, keeping it alive. The pavana or the vital force here intended is that which makes one breathe in and out. It is called the Mukhya Prana. When the breath is held, it is observed that the thoughts also decrease, and finally, when the breath movement is brought to a standstill, the thoughts also completely subside. This is a practical tip given by Bhagavan. He explains the rationale in a couplet in Upadesha Saram, where he says, force divides into 2 branches. One is the mind and the second the prana. They are like a couple of horses yoked to a carriage. When the reins of one are held tight, it naturally has to stop, thereby rendering the other unable to proceed. Contrary to what medical science says, stoppage of breath does not result in an increase of carbon dioxide in the blood, which should weaken a person. Yogis have been said to prolong their lives for hundreds of years by completely stopping their breath, by adopting what is called Lambika Yoga. Now, completely stopping the breath is not possible in the beginning. It is a matter of practice. Certain other things are helpful, such as remaining fixedly in an asana for effecting control of breath. By controlling any one prana, it is seen in practical life that you control the other pranas also. When the movements of the vital force are controlled, this vital force no longer gives any scope for the sense organs to reach out towards worldly objects. Consequently, the vital force fills the body and returns to its source, the Atman, where the mind also dissolves at the same time. It is, so to speak, as if a dam were raised across a running torrent, which would perforce be obliged to reverse the direction of its flow. It is said, if one stops talking for a dozen years, the mind will be rendered fairly calm, when the silencing of the thoughts altogether can be practiced. With a dozen years of practice of the latter variety, the silence attained will be profound and deep, and that is the state of Samadhi. Sri Ramayogi, a well-known disciple of Sri Bhagavan, has practiced the silence of the first variety, and the progress he made is well described in Paul Bronten's book, A Search in Secret India. Satata Pratyavekshanat, by constant watch of the breath. There are several methods advocated as to the manner of breath control. The method the Maharshi teaches is a rare one. If it is merely watched and no attempt at control is made, the breath of itself slows down almost to a vanishing point. This is a practical tip and is the essence of several types of yoga sadhana. Normally, in Hatha Yoga, the nostrils are closed and opened with the fingers for definite intervals. Some say that if the time taken for in-breathing is 1 unit, the retention of the breath should be for 4 units and breathing out for 2 units. The sadhaka practicing in this way is fighting a battle, as it were, with the force of the breath, where this battle to be conducted on wrong lines, dangers or disaster might follow, particularly were it to be lost. Forced effort may end in various kinds of diseases. It may entail madness, and in some cases, if the kundalini or life force rises uncontrolled, the body gets almost burnt up and death results. This practice is to be done under the personal surveillance of the master. With great care and circumspection, adopting easy techniques from time to time and under different restrictions as to diet, time and posture. The Maharshi bids us strictly to avoid this method of Hatha Yoga. Do not fight with the natural flow of the breath. Only watch it as if you were a witness to a process. It is called the Sakshi Bhava in philosophical terminology. The advantages of the Maharshi's method are many. It automatically turns the thoughts away from the ideas and objects of the world, effecting a severance between the world and one's self. The world of affairs will amount to zero for the practicant of this method. All the tribulations that naturally follow any contact with the world cease. One becomes an untouchable for them, so that all disturbing factors are brought to an abrupt end. Not for him are the emotional surges and fits of despair found in the Bhakti Marga, nor are the anxieties of the Karma Marga present. The dangers of the Yoga Marga will never touch him. Not even the troubles of the path of Raja Yoga will face him. One is almost the divine, the Kutashta, who is said to be the witness of the 3 states of consciousness, Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti. The result will be slowing down of the speed with which thoughts arise. They become slower, and at the end a thought arises and sinks, an interval ensues, and only then another thought arises. That means, since the thoughts arise in consciousness, the ulterior self, the thoughts sink again into the consciousness, and before another thought ensues, there is only the consciousness and no thoughts. In reality, one is the consciousness, and then there is no idea of the manifested world, either gross or subtle. One is almost in the state of divinity. It is the Hrid state of consciousness which is thoughtless. One has reached the highest possible goal of individual effort, where the little self is not known. It is almost attainment of the Atman. The practice of this method needs no niyamas. Differences in time, circumstances, climate, personality, sex, race and religion are all gone. The moment you begin this practice, you are away and over the world's dualities. There are no more Shastras, no more discussions trouble you. Others need not know that you are a sadhaka of this sort. Generally, people praise a sadhaka for his consistency, good nature, and high spiritual attainment. This praise is the greatest danger to a sadhaka. In Ulladu Narpadu supplement, Bhagavan has clearly pointed out this danger. In this method, even the vanity of being a sadhaka is given up. We said, almost the divine. The reason for this reservation is that the self, even in this state, is shrouded over by the Avarana Shakti of Maya. None can remove this shroud by his own effort. For when one is in this state of Hrid, there is no individual left to make any effort for the removal of this shroud. Then what is the way? Nothing but the divine grace can help you now. The state of Hrid contains in itself the unmanifested seeds of later manifestations. The force of those seeds must get weakened by effects of time and experiences of their results in the various worlds, both subtle and gross. When the force of those seeds becomes negligible, the Atman of itself emerges in all its glory. The state of Hrid is a negative experience. The state of Atman is a positive experience, entirely dependent upon its own grace. So says the Upanishads. To him whom it chooses, it reveals itself. The Kathopanishad. Manasasvam Chinvata, searching for oneself with the mind. The self here is oneself, not the Atman. It is beyond search. Oneself is a little entity. The search is to know whence the idea of I arises. That is to say, who is this little self? In Ulladu Narpadu, Bhagavan says, the real self does not say I. The body cannot say I. In between the two arises this thought I and firmly clings to the body. If you search for its nature, which is as a phantom devil, it disappears. When thoughts disappear into their source, even this thought I should disappear. This I thought is the primary thought, and the other thoughts cannot sprout without it. This inquiry is sometimes based on the previous practice of watching the breath. Normally, we are not able to catch up with the speed with which one thought succeeds another. It is as if the several photographs on the cinema reel succeed each other with such rapidity that we get the impression of one continuous picture. Therefore, it is only when we can slow down this mental process and are able to catch each single thought by itself that we can inquire about it. In slowing down thoughts, we have used the process of noting the breath. We can also take the illustration of a slow motion picture here, say of horse racing. When a thought by itself appears, Bhagavan asks us to inquire to whom it arises, obviously with one's searching mind. It is an intellectual affair, not, as some others hold, a negation of thought. We hold to the thought and try to follow it up by asking to whom it occurs. Obviously, it occurs to the notional I, for the real I has no thought. Bhagavan asks us to proceed and see whence that notion arises. It must necessarily be to the consciousness, that is to say, to the Atman, where even the I thought does not exist. If one repeats this process continuously without any break, the process must lead to the Atman. It is as if a brand burns other brands and itself too. There is another slight modification. Instead of questioning to whom does the thought occur, inquire whence the thought arises. We mean any thought, not the thought of I only. All thoughts must arise from the consciousness, and they are directed towards the world and all our ideas connected with it. If we try to cut across the connection with this world, only the consciousness remains. It is the Atman. In this process, there is only one step. Whence does this thought arise? In the previous paragraph, we have talked of a process where there are two steps, searching for the source of each thought and searching for the source of the I thought. These processes are called by Bhagavan the Sarala Marga, or the straight and easy path. At any rate, they are easy for those who can turn their minds inwards and away from the objects of the world. But if one, as a previous step, follows the first path of watching the breath, it is quite easy for anybody. The point to note is, we do not negate a thought as does the Shankara method. Shankara says, when a thought occurs, dismiss it immediately. Here, we do not do so. We retain the thought and attempt to seek its source. I once asked Bhagavan how it should be possible to trace the root of a tree all the while without remembering the trunk of the tree. How can we go to the source of the thought without holding on to the thought? Bhagavan replied, practice and see. Bhagavan compares this method to each enemy soldier coming out of the fort alone, when he can be easily killed. If one thought comes out, one can easily kill it. If all the warriors in the fort rally forth at once, it will be difficult to repulse them. Therefore, slow down the speed of the thoughts first. Catch each thought, and by seeking its source, destroy it. In the supplement to Ullathu Narpadu, there is a verse which lends support to the idea that the self-enquiry is performed without the mind. The matter will be elucidated in the explanation of the next aphorism. In this aphorism, it is clearly stated that it is the mind which carries on the self-enquiry. Majjatava, by dipping in. In the previous aphorism, Bhagavan advocated the discipline of going away from name and form, which, if they exist, form an obstacle in the path. In this aphorism, the discipline taught is a unique one in that it takes the very form and name used to denote the ulterior divinity as steps to realization of the ultimate divine, the Atman. For, as it is said in Ullathu Narpadu, by whatever name or form you worship, or in whatever way you worship, the worship will lead you to that which has no name or form. A name is but an idea. It reminds you of a quality, that is guna, or of an action, kriya, of a genesis, jati, or of a symbol having a particular significance. At least that is so in Sanskrit. If we say Siva, it means good to the universe. In that world, an attribute is explained. If we say Vishnu, that means one who is omnipresent. Being everywhere is an action. If we say the formless, we indicate the genesis of a form. And if in Mantra Sastra we say we use the symbol for the creator. Therefore, the use of all different languages means the use of different ideas. The basis of all languages is sound, and the different manifestations of sound are the letters, the basis of all creation. In the beginning, there was the Word. The Word could not have existed without an idea. The Word should have been comprised of different deflections of sound, and it was the Word out of which the world arose. The worship of the divine through words or ideas generally means with the help of hymns and songs or stuti and mantras, a combination of words of mystical import or namas, the names of the Lord. In this aphorism, Bhagavan advocates sticking to the name or the mantra. He says in Upadeshasaram, Japa of mantra is better than hymnal praise, and the mental repetition of the mantra or the name is more effective than the utterance of either aloud or in whisper. And then he explains, if you continue sticking to the sound or the idea, there will come a stage when there will be only a sound, undifferentiated even into various letters. As you go deeper and deeper, even the sound dissolves, and that process he calls dipping in. There is a midway between this dipping in and the previous path advocated, that of self-enquiry. When you repeat a name or mantra, Bhagavan says that you watch the source of the sound or him that produces the sound, that being the Atman alone. You have followed the sound to the Atman. This is a finer way of Atma Vichara. That is what he taught to Ganapati Muni. Here is the reconciliation between Mantra Shastra and Vedanta. As with the name, the process of dipping in can be carried on with the help of a form. The most popular form taken up is that of an idol, an icon, a symbol like a swastika, a yantra like the six-pointed star, or a chakra in the form of Sri Chakra. Hold on to any of these forms. Remember them every minute of your life. The forms disappear. There will be a light not of this earth. It will be the light, and the light will disappear into the sunya or the void or hrid. In technical language, the name is mentioned as nada and the final form of the form as the kala. Both disappear into the bindu, the vast void, wherein take place these phenomena or creation. In this method, we see clearly that thoughts are clung to as such, forms are clung to as such. There is no effort to reach their source. The source is reached automatically. Negate all thoughts of name and form except that which you have adopted. With this as your aid, dip in. Dip into yourself. Reject every other idea. As the source of creation, you are, you being the Atman. In this process of dipping in are included every sadhana advocated in any religion. Clinging to a name or form is bhakti. Worshipping a form or name is karma. Knowing a form or name and its significance is jnana. Keeping your attention fixed on a name or form to the exclusion of all others is Raja Yoga. All the religions of the world have their basis in this, clinging to the one and dipping in. All meet in the Ramana doctrine. This is the method he has advocated as mentioned under the previous aphorism as the real vichara. In Ulladhu Narpadu, he says, do not utter I aloud. Collect all your prana, dip into that. That is real Atma Vichara. It may be interesting to note that the idea that through sound being the most subtle medium through which we can dip in to the Atman is also the opinion held by our great musician Tyagaraja. He says that without a knowledge of music, the art of utilizing sound, and without a knowledge of the sound in the Mooladhara, sound as a concept, one can never attain liberation. He followed Bhakti Marga, and his practice was also dipping into the music and merging with the primal sound. He also used the technique of yoga by the control of the movement of prana through the various channels and through the Sahasrara. Sakshat Bhati, directly experienced. In aphorism 5, Nirguna Upasana, or the worship of the Brahman without attribute, is advocated. In aphorism 6, the way of Saguna Brahma Upasana is explained. Under this aphorism, Bhagavan tells us that the fruition of the spiritual endeavors lies in the Atman flashing directly as our experience. There are experiences of two kinds. One is mediate and the other is immediate. We see through the eye and know a thing. Therefore, it is mediate experience. Suddenly, a thought flashes intuitively in the mind. That is immediate experience. The experience of the Brahman can only be immediate, and unlike the usual experiences, which imply a triad of experiencer, experienced, and experience, this experience of the Atman is a direct, immediate one. Bhagavan used to add, think of a person going down a well in search of some lost article. He sees it and takes it, but is unable to communicate this to the people outside the well itself. Similarly, a man having the experience of the Atman in Samadhi is unable to speak of it when he is in Samadhi. Unlike the first case, in the second, even after he returns to the normal consciousness, he cannot actually or exactly reveal it in words. For words come after the appearance of phenomena, and in the Brahman there is no phenomena. Aham aham iti, as I. The direct experience that comes to a sadhaka as a function of his endeavors is the experience of the ultimate as I. Various descriptions have been given of this experience in the negative way. Example, it is neither light nor darkness. It gives light, so it is called the light. It is neither knowledge nor ignorance. It gives knowledge, so it is knowledge, Chit. In modern language too, it is not a being nor becoming, but it exists. Therefore, it is called Sat. In contrast to all other things that disappear, Bhagavan calls this experience the I experience. In that state, one must have been there to experience it. It must be devoid of any other experience. Then only can it be said to be the self and nothing else. Some have said, there being only one experience, why would Bhagavan have used two eyes? I. One explanation is, the second eye does not indicate a subsequent experience. The second eye is used to confirm the experience. Others say, in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, you get a similar experience, but it is not a constant thing. Like the flash of lightning, it appears and disappears. So, two eyes are used. Finally, the experience becomes a constant one. We may add that in yoga, in the experience, there is a slight tinge of the individuality, and the mind can be said to have existed in a very, very rarefied state called Visuddha Sattva. But in actual experience, it makes no difference. The experience is something like a throb. That is why it may be called Jnanaspanda, a throb of knowledge. Brahma Mantram, only Brahman. People dealing in Sastras will question whether the universe being real and this experience being of a short duration, the Atman experienced can be real. They also say that in the texts, the Atman is said to be infinitesimally thin, Tanvi, but Bhagavan says it is big too. How to reconcile? The texts themselves give the answer, which Bhagavan has also repeated. Smaller than the smallest and bigger than the biggest, says the Upanishad. The Shruti says, verily, all this is Brahman. Then there can be no difference between the Atman and the Brahman. In the Atman, there is a superimposition of the manifested cosmos, which alone is apparent to you and which prevents you seeing the Atman. In the state of knowledge, the superimposed mental knowledge disappears, and call it whatever you will, Atman or Brahman, that alone remains without a second. As the Shruti says, Ekameva, only one, Advitiyam, no second, Kevalam, only. Philosophy expounds three types of differences. Sajatiya, the difference between a horse and a horse. Vijatiya, like the difference between a horse and a cow. Swagata, the difference between the hand and the foot in one's person. Bhagavan says that none of these types of difference exists in Brahman. It is like an ocean, all salt water. Not even like an ocean, because salt exists there in a state of dissolution. There is nothing dissolved in the Atman. It is pure. This aphorism is necessary to controvert the position that the Brahman is Saguna. Otherwise, how could a cosmos with various attributes come out of it? Bhagavan says, no, it has no attributes. It is pure, undefiled by any admixture. It is in Sanskrit, Ghana, not giving scope to any other thing. Now, the ultimate is Ananda Ghana, not Anandamaya. Epilogue. These aphorisms are the very words of Sri Bhagavan. All but one of them have been taken from the first Sanskrit verse he ever wrote in about 1913, the famous Hridaya Kuhara Sloka, forming chapter 2 of Ramana Gita. Aphorism number 4 has been taken from the Ramana Gita itself, Canto 6, version 5. The explanations, several of them were given by Bhagavan himself. The rest has been culled out from other philosophical texts, so that the author of this brochure makes no claim for originality, nor does he claim that Bhagavan's teaching, except in one point, is original. So far as he is aware, Bhagavan's teaching and explanations are in tune with the best traditional Advaitic thought and texts. Om Shri Ramanarpanamastu. The existence of all that is either affirmed or denied in the one substratum of the indestructible, unattached, non-dual, absolute self depends only on the mind, just as the appearance or disappearance of the imaginary snake in a piece of rope has no basis in reality. Bondage and liberation are creations of Maya, superimpositions upon the Brahman imagined by the mind without any existence in reality. It is a fool who blames the sun for his own blindness. It is impossible to argue that bondage is caused by the wailing power of Maya and liberation by its destruction, since there is no differentiation in the self. Such an argument would lead to a denial of the truth of non-duality and an affirmation of duality. This would be contrary to the authority of the scriptures. How can there be any display of Maya in non-dual Brahman, which is perfect stillness, one whole like the ether, spotless, actionless, unstained and formless? The scriptures even proclaim aloud, there is in truth no creation and no destruction. No one is bound, no one is seeking liberation, no one is on the way to deliverance. There are none liberated. This is the absolute truth. This is the sum and substance of all the Upanishads, the secret of secrets. Viveka Chudamani, Bhagavan Sri Ramana.